couldn't vibrate.
So what?
Sir?
Good to see you, sir.
Okay.
Glad you made it.
Hell yeah.
How do you like the new accommodations?
Well, to continue our argument earlier, it's not that I have a problem with giving a college degree or spending state money. It's the accountability factor.
Mm.
I don't like this part.
Okay.
They amended it.
But other than that,
The senators cut fines and then
did y'all park right there at the base of the bridge?
Gerard and Wood.
I try parking down there somewhere. I mean,
Gerard and Wood.
Well, I know there's a
I parked like
base
right
bridge.
across the across the
Right.
bridge.
Yeah, I parked underneath it. I think that's where I parked too.
yeah, I just parked in an I-10.
Where you at, dude?
Oh, right there at the base. And there's a big argument if you have to pay after 5 or not. I went to pay.
Yeah, I paid.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
was like $3 for me.
yeah, I did 4 just to be safe.
I don't like to pay, but
That's how the city makes the money, bro. You know that.
I'd rather not mess up.
It's a private, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then they put me on their
Right.
collection.
Right.
They call me at night. Try to call me at work. You need to pay up.
That's why I live 2 counties away, so I'll be like, goodbye. Can't find me.
That's why you take your friend's car down here.
2 counties. Where'd you come from, brother? Oh, did you?
Speaking of which, can I borrow your car next week?
Shit, I thought I came far. You came far too.
Took me an hour to get to there.
Yeah, I came from G-Town.
Food or drink is allowed.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that too.
It is or
Yeah,
isn't?
there's a sign outside of this door, but not that one.
It depends on if you're gonna make a scene or not.
I just didn't want to.
Yeah. It's like if you're gonna be persona non grata, they're gonna just give you a reason. They're just gonna get a reason to kick you out.
I was in the store earlier this week that sold tasers, and I really don't want to get hit by a taser.
Oh, I don't blame you.
Safe store off I-10.
You guys been to Top Ammo?
No?
Dude, that's a badass store. There's 2 of them. One in Stafford and the one on 45.
Yeah. I had to go down there for
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and your dedication to having some really critical conversations this evening. My name is Sarah Jahansus, and I have the pleasure of serving the University of Houston downtown as Dean of Students. One of the major student organizations that I work very closely with is UHD Student Government Association. The Student Government Association is affiliated with UHD in our shared governance model. They are a team of student leaders who are the voice of our student body, and so it is their event that we're attending this evening. So thank you to our SGA for making this happen. There are a few things that we should probably bring to everyone's attention as we engage in this very meaningful dialogue. One of the things that I love about higher education is it provides us an environment where people with different belief systems and different ideologies can express those things and we can learn from one another. So I really encourage us tonight to focus on the learning. There are going to be times where we really need to be aware and committed to the concept of emotional intelligence. So making sure that we're actively listening, we're not interrupting one another, that we display empathy. So when someone shares a story or an experience that may be different from that of our own lives, we try to hear them out and think about it from their perspective. And then also really having a mutual respect for vulnerability. I'm confident that some of the stories and some of the comments that we may hear tonight will require a great deal of vulnerability from the audience. So I want to thank you in advance for doing that. This evening's meeting is going to be moderated by a member of the Student Government Association, Ms. Tara Taylor. She has volunteered to make that happen this evening. Our time frame that we're working with is 5:30 to 7 p.m. If you haven't signed in, we would love for you to sign in so we can capture and catalog who is here and who is a part of this dialogue. And the one other thing that the Student Government Association would like to respectfully request is that comments and questions and feedback be limited to 2 to 3 minutes per person so that all voices may be heard this evening. Without any further ado, I'm going to welcome Ms. Tara Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you for coming out today. And if you missed class, thank you for missing class. Hopefully you'll get extra credit. My name is Tara Taylor. I'm the Attorney General for the Student Government Association. I'm also the former chair of the Special Services Committee, which is the survey committee. Just a little background on what SGA has been doing in terms of campus carry. 2 years ago when this came up in the Senate and the House,
normal parking,
we
just
almost
on
passed
the
a
street.
resolution in opposition of this bill. And when I was in the Senate, I stood up and said we need to survey the students. Unfortunately, it was too late. We ran out of time before this legislation was killed in the legislature. So now that it's back again, we have an opportunity
looks like we're going to get to ask questions.
And I appreciate everyone that's taken the survey.
I don't know.
We will
It's
be
going on right now.
at midnight tonight. So please make sure
We'll see
if you
you.
haven't taken it to check your Gator mail and take the survey. You all should have a copy of the full legislation. I know it's really difficult to read. I am going to try to summarize very quickly for you what it is. So I'm going to read it off my phone. I hope that's okay. So I'm basically going to read what was in the survey that explains what it is. And if you have more questions, definitely ask them when we get to the question portion. So what is campus carry? Campus carry is Texas legislation that will allow students, faculty, staff, and visitors that are concealed handgun license holders to carry a concealed weapon on campus grounds and buildings. Certain facilities such as hospitals, preschools, grade schools, sporting events, and residence halls would be exempt from this policy. Texans must be at least 21 years old to get a concealed handgun license, with underage exceptions made only for veterans and active duty military. Currently in Texas, only guns stored in your locked vehicle are permitted on campus. So, if you are a concealed handgun license owner, you will be able to concealed carry your gun on campus. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, what we're going to do is open up the question portion of the event. And we will be, if you have a question, you can field them to any of our 3 guests, maybe 2, maybe 3. We have Chief Boyle, who is the University of Houston Downtown Police Chief. He is here. And we have Mr. David Bradley, who is the Vice President of Administration and Finance. And we have Professor, y'all help me out, y'all help me out. Is she here? Okay, she's not here. We have a criminal justice professor that might be here soon. Dr. Harris. She is a criminal justice professor. She's done a little research on this issue, and she will be able to take questions if she is here. I'm not quite sure. I'm an online student, so I don't know what our professors look like. But, so we're going to take questions, if anybody has questions, and we'll bring the mic to you. And if you have a particular person that you want to address it to, let us know, and we'll bring them the mic for you. So let's start with questions. You have 2 minutes.
Anthony Butcher, student here. I have a question for mainly for the chief of police, actually. Once this does get passed, students can carry handguns. Will you have a list of the persons who are carrying handguns, and what will you do to ensure that, where they said this here says that you can make regulations regarding where they can have the gun stored or they can have on the person, this and that. What measures are you going to take to ensure that there's still safety on campus, even though the licensed students will have it or faculty member?
Very good question. The way this legislation is currently written, we cannot have a list of registered concealed handgun carry persons. The only thing that we can regulate is in dormitories and residences. University of Houston Downtown does not have dormitories or residences. That answers that question.
So I had a question. How are we able to differentiate then who, like, if someone doesn't have a concealed license or whatever to carry, but they're bringing it to school, how do we identify that if people that don't have the ability to carry guns are carrying them to school? How will we differentiate that? And do you believe that that creates opportunity for, you know, other people outside of people that have license that like to start carrying guns around at school?
Remember, this is a concealed handgun carry bill. This is not open carry. This is a concealed handgun carry bill. So the weapon must be concealed. If for some reason that weapon becomes visible, the person that sees it should call the police department. Our officers will come up, try to identify the person. If we can find that person, identify whether or not they have a concealed handgun carry license. If they have a concealed handgun carry license, we'll have a little discussion with them about keeping it concealed, making sure they don't intentionally make it visible. If they have a concealed handgun carry license and this bill's in effect, then we go on about our business.
I have a question. This is to Mr. Bradley. What are the financial implications of this bill as far as gun lockers and so on and so forth?
Well, as the chief was saying a moment ago, the only thing that's in that bill that would cause us to incur any expense would be if we had to have gun lockers, and we don't, because we don't have dormitories and sports arenas, Chief. I think that they're not included in those. Is that correct? Or yeah. So the only, I mean, you've heard some, you've read the paper, and you've seen some big numbers. UT and U of H have talked about how much it would cost them to comply with this law. But that has almost exclusively to do with the fact that they have apartments and dormitories and residence program.
Very good information. Anybody have a question? No?
Yeah, almost. I just want to clarify something that, including in this bill, that it says that there are certain areas that are exempt. Well, they are exempt that if only they post effective notice under Section 30.06, which is included, and it's the trespass by concealed license holder, which means it has to be a specific signage authorized by the state that only certain areas, if they put that sign, are therefore allowed to prohibit carry. Just to clarify.
I don't understand.
Oh, he said he didn't understand. Can you clarify?
Sorry.
Well, it's in the current bill, like it says, like, you know, like hospitals, it was like hospitals, preschools, daycare centers, like you said it was exempt. Well, they're only exempt if they post effective notice under Penal Code Section 30.06, which is a sign that says trespass by a person to carry a concealed handgun license, which means, and pretty much the exact sign just says, pursuant to Section 30.06, a person who is licensed to carry under Government Code Chapter 411, Subchapter H, is prohibited from carrying a concealed handgun on the particular premises.
And these are the normal signs that CHL told us secret?
Yeah, so like the no gun signs, right, they don't have the force of law.
Right. So if you have a CHL and you, like in the Commerce building, because we have a lot of people that carry firearms in that particular building, there's a big sign and it says, and it's a gun and it has a, you know, a bunch of chapter stuff, and it basically says you can't carry inside that building. If I'm understanding you correctly, those prohibited places would have to have that signage.
That specific sign, right, that is written in the Penal Code.
And CHL holders know when we see that, we know to look for those signs for one, but we know when we see that sign, we are not allowed to conceal carry in those areas. So basically, it's only prohibited if we see that sign in those prohibited areas. Anybody else have a question, clarification? Okay, do y'all want to talk about the survey? We can talk about survey results. So when I wrote the survey, I wanted to find out a little bit more about our campus. And one of the questions I asked is how old you are, One of the questions I asked is what campus you attend school at. So I just wanted to talk about that really briefly and talk about the numbers. So I'm going to pull it up on my phone really quick. And this is important because when you look at the news and the articles that are written on Campus Cary, a lot of them are geared towards campuses that are not like ours. We have a commuter campus, we don't have housing here, and we serve a non-traditional student population. Most of our students live at the or go to school at the downtown campus. A few of them go online, and this is based on 245 responses to the survey. We have found that a quarter of our students have CHL licenses. That doesn't mean that they'll all carry, and that doesn't mean that they all want to. So,
A quarter of the students that surveyed.
right, a quarter, well, I mean, this is representative of all our students. So roughly a quarter of our student population has CHLs. So the survey results are very close, and they've been close from the beginning. This is what I suspected 2 years ago when we had the same issue come up, which is why I asked for the students to be surveyed. So I think we need to think of ways that we can work regardless of whether it's, it gets killed or it passes in the Senate, or in the House, or either one, because there's 2 bills now. So I think we need to figure out what's the best way to make us safe on campus, and whether that's with concealed carry or with our police department. Chief Boyle, can you talk a little bit about our crime statistics at campus?
Right.
Our crime statistics are actually pretty low. Our biggest crime is theft. By far, our biggest crime is theft. People leave something lying around, walk away from it, come back, and it's not there anymore. We average, 75, 80, somewhere in that bracket. We're trying to get that reduced annually, and that is by far our largest crime. As far as I can remember, we've never had a murder. We've never had a sexual assault. We have occasional robberies, crimes of opportunity. We do have some auto thefts, and we do have an occasional burglary. But by far, our biggest crime is theft. And compare our crime stats with other local universities. You can go to their websites, most of the time it's on their PD websites, and look for their Clarion report. There should be 3 years worth of statistics that you can look at and compare our crime statistics to others, and I think that ours are fairly low.
This question is for Chief Boyle. Do you really see any change coming from this bill, like if it passes? Because 10 people could be carrying guns in here right now and we not know it. So would there be any, do you see any change outside of it being legal?
No, but that also depends on the CHL people, because this is a CHL bill, for the CHL people to make sure that they keep it concealed. If it becomes visible, then we have to step in and we have a little chat. If we find out it was intentional, that's a violation of the law. If it's an inadvertent, then we have a little chat with them about making sure that they keep their weapons concealed, and we go about our business. Think about it. You go to the malls, you go to shopping stores, you go all over. You don't know the person next to you. And how many of you know whether or not the person next to you has a concealed handgun on them at the mall, at a grocery store, or just walking down the street? It would be the same thing here.
I was reading a little bit about this today, and I was not really surprised, but there's already 7 states that have concealed carry on campus laws. 8 if you include Arkansas, which I think has faculty only, so they're a little bit different. But there are states, including Utah, that's had this for 10 years. And you haven't heard about a rash of gun incidents on these 8 in these 8 states where these gun laws are already in place. So to your question, I don't see it as being something that's going to cause a major change here on campus. If everyone does what they're supposed to do, and keeps, if they have a license, if they're over 21, they must be over 21 to have a license, and they keep it concealed, I don't see it being a big impact.
Can you anyone talk about what you have to go through to get a CHL? So what do you have to do to qualify and actually receive it? Chief Boyd. So I'm pretty sure you have one.
I am not aware of all the requirements to obtain a concealed handgun carry license.
Yeah.
I looked at the CHL handgun license spot on the DPS website, but I wasn't looking for that particular information when I was there. I don't have a CHL because I'm a police officer and I carry it all over anyway, so I'm not up to date on that.
And I'll let you go.
All right. Off the top of my head, the main requirements of the CHL are you have to be 21 years old or older, or 18 years old or older as an active duty veteran, active duty or with a year veteran, or a volunteer with an ID or a police officer. Y'all all qualify. You can do that at 18 also. I don't know why you want one. I guess for reciprocity's sake. You have to do 2 FBI background checks. You have to submit your fingerprints in duplicate. You have to submit 2 sets of passport photos. The background check includes tax information. It goes through pretty much anything you would do if there's a Class A misdemeanor, certain Class B misdemeanors, or any felonies, or an automatic exclusion. I'm forgetting something. You have to do a live range proficiency unless you have some kind of waiver, which is normally done through military or police only. And then you have to do, I think it's a 10-hour training course. It's just about the law where you can 4 to 6 now? Jesus, they got off easy. Also, it has to be redone every 4 or 5 years, depending on how your license was issued or when it was issued.
5 the first time, 10 every after that.
Now it's changed, because when I first got mine, I had to get it done after 4 because I got mine at 18. So.
You also have to pay.
Oh yeah, I need to pay like $100.
That's your.
Oh, that's
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it used to be that you had to qualify with a style of handgun.
Not anymore. Used to you either qualified with a revolver or semi-automatic handgun. There were some guys who actually had Class 3s with Glock 18s who tried to qualify with full auto, and that's against the law completely, even though they legally own the full auto. I don't know why anyone here yet. Each their own. So now that's changed. Now if you qualify with anything over 6 shots, you can carry non-semi-automatic or semi-automatic.
You can qualify down to a 22 under the new law too.
Really? Used to it had to be 30.
Well, yeah. Once it passes this legislative session, you can go. Yeah, you have to get it passed, but I think they're going to pass it. Yeah, they're probably going to get you down.
Does everybody know the difference between open carry and concealed carry? And we all do. Students, do y'all understand? Does anybody, do y'all know what that is? Sounds like it. Okay. All right. No, you have a question?
It's not a question.
Or
I just want to make a comment. I just want to make a quick comment because I do have class at the moment, so I have to go there right after this. The way I see it, personally, to me, I don't like the law. I just don't feel safe about it. But I also believe in always being open to what's happening. And if, the people up in Austin feel like this is the best action to take, and it seems like there's enough data and statistics behind it to show that it is not necessarily a bad law, because statistics show that states with CHLs and what is it called? Open carry?
Open carry.
Concealed carry, they have less violent crimes, for lack of a better word. So to me, I don't like it, but I'm going to be open to it. So if it passes, like it most likely will, I'm not going to fret about it. I'm not going to make a big fuss or start some kind of protest campaign, hey, let's rally against this. No, I'm going to be open about it because that's how just the law and politics work. You should always be open. You shouldn't put your own personal biases in the way of what the general public wants. So if it passes, fine. Let's just see how it works. That's all I have to say.
Mine's basically more of a statement, and the statistics everybody's referring to, and so proud that the police show up. Police officers are 5 times more likely to commit a crime than any CHL holder.
Anybody else want to express their thoughts on this bill?
I agree with Jason a little. Well, that's Jason Johnson. I agree with him a little, but I do disagree with this bill. I guess as far as like fundamentals go, because I think what gets lost is what we do here at college. This is a learning institution, and the very essence of that is growth. And guns like refute that. It doesn't matter if you're using them in defense or offense. Violence doesn't coincide with growth, which is what we do here at a school, at a learning institution. It's to grow intellectually or culturally, and guns just don't seem to fit in with that at all. And so I guess I don't understand the fundamentals of it. I don't understand why it's needed. Like, I don't get the purpose. But like Jason, I'm open. I mean, I took the essay, the survey, the SGA survey, and I took a little issue with it because we only asked if we thought that students should be able to carry guns. As far as the law goes, I would say yes, because, Second Amendment rights and all that. But, there you go. As far as just being a student here, it wouldn't make me uncomfortable. I just don't understand why it's needed on campus. When we come here and what we do, none of what we do here requires guns. It doesn't require violence, which is what guns are. Like, that's what people associate with guns, violence.
Excuse me. Is a police officer here currently armed?
Tell me if I am or not.
As a state commissioned officer, are you currently armed?
Tell me if I am or not.
Well, if you would do a 360, if you do a 360, and if this man is armed, and if he has a gun, and if he's so violent, why is he standing there patiently and calm, not committing any crimes?
Amen.
When you have a large body of unarmed people, show me any one law that has stopped any active shooter from carrying out the mass murders that have happened in the past. Laws do not stop people from committing crimes. They're there for after the fact for the prosecutor to convict the guilty parties.
Does anybody, or Chief Boyle, can you talk about our active shooter protocol? If we have one, which I think we do. Or do we have someone to talk about our active shooter protocol?
I'll talk about it very briefly. The whole point of responding to an active shooter is to put force on force with the shooter as quickly and efficiently as possible. That's our police department theory. All of our officers are trained to that theory. And the sooner that we can get to the shooter and put force on force actively, effectively, the better for everybody. We all know what the statistics are. They fluctuate as studies come out, but there's a lot of shots fired very quickly. So the quicker you get there, the more effectively and accurately you put force on force, the quicker you can end the violence.
So if a CHL is shooting at an active shooter, that's responding faster and the officer can show up, correct?
Maybe, maybe not.
Okay. What's the average response time to an officer on a call?
Place at the right time.
What's the response time for an officer on call on campus?
Depends on where it's occurring. We have people in buildings, we have people on patrol. So if we're in the right building at the right place at the right time, it can be almost instantaneous. We've had that happen on the 3rd floor out here before.
How do you stop an active shooter from coming into this building?
Again, there's too many variables there. Is he openly displaying as he comes in? Is he walking in covered up and then pull it out? There's too many variables.
I think that's a good point, like talking about active shooters, and I think that's why some people want to carry, because they want to protect themselves, and some people want to protect their classmates too. And it's assumed that it's faster and easier to for CHL holders to do that instead of the police. But I do want to bring up a question that I have. CHL holders, and I know I wasn't tactically trained. What is the likelihood of someone getting hurt on crossfire between a CHL holder and a shooter, or someone who misses because they have not been tactically trained?
That's in any shooting situation, whether you're a highly trained police officer or a little trained CHL. It all depends on a whole bunch of variables, and you know, there's just too many variables to predict that.
So I just wanted to clarify, if there is a shooter on campus and a CHL holder does take it upon himself to, take care of the situation, and say he shoots and kills the shooter, are they legally protected by the law?
Yes, they are. Any of your CHLs should be able to tell you when they can hold their weapon in defense of themselves or others.
Immediate, imminent danger of life or limb is the only time we're actually allowed to pull our weapon. We pull our weapon before that is actually called brandishing. We're also allowed to help any time there's a felony being committed, whether it's a carjacking, robbery, anything like that. Those are the only times in which our weapons are allowed to come out. If we pull it out at any other given point in time, it's actually Class A misdemeanor now, I think.
Even if you're protecting someone else in imminent danger?
It's self or third party. So if someone's over here stabbing someone, I'm allowed to pull and shoot. If someone comes through here with a gun, they're not looking for me to look for someone else, I'm allowed to pull and shoot. If someone's breaking into someone else's car, I'm allowed to stop them. And then, you can't just shoot someone for breaking into a car, but it's the same process. It's the same as it is to defend yourself or others in your point in time, it's just a firearm involved. So if you would defend yourself or you defend that other person from dying in any way you can do it, firearms just an added tool.
Okay.
You're still held liable.
But yeah, you still can be held liable in civil suit. Well, wait, isn't that part of the new bill? They're civilly checking civil? Still fishy? That's why I have insurance.
With the way the current law is written as of this moment, if you are immune from civil liability from the person that committed the force against you or against your property or a third person. So if you shoot someone who's attacking someone, they cannot sue you or their families cannot sue you. You are civilly immune from them. Now, so that's to answer your question. Well, it's common sense that if someone is busting through the door with a gun and they're walking in between people, it's common sense is you don't have a clear shot. You really don't. I mean, when you own a gun, use me for an example. I mean, it's common sense. I mean, like if he's right over there and he's about to pull a gun, that's a clear line of shot. There's no one else over there. I have a clear line of shots. And obviously, I mean, people do miss. Your adrenaline kicks in. You lose fine motor control. But you have the opportunity, and if it's clear to fire, you fire.
To bring it full circle for the active shooter thing, if you look at the history of active shooters pretty much in the United States, what you will find is in many cases, as soon as they meet resistance, the last time they pull the trigger is on themselves. This happened with Cho, this happened with Harrison Klebold. There's a massive history of this happening over and over. As a CHL holder, and also as somebody that has a daughter that's currently in college, being able to make them do that sooner is exactly what a CHL can do, whether you actually shoot them or not. The minute that they see that force has been met upon them, that is when they cap themselves. That's what you want to happen. You want them to stop shooting people as quickly as you can, whether you actually physically shoot them yourself or not. So.
Since I've been here about 2-3 years, UHD has taken measures to ensure safety of students, including locking doors from the outside and the green light comes on. There's monitors inside to students, teachers know any further messages and stuff, but My concern is I don't see enough police presence on campus enough. I see them on bicycles and stuff, but if this law passes with the Senate in Texas and people are able to carry more weapons on campus, and God forbid there is a shooter, that will only encourage more shooting from students who have guns than from the officers who are trained to respond to that. So how would that work out as far as if there was an incident that would only create more bullets ricocheting? How is that going to help the students who are not armed?
That's a difficult answer because you've got people that are lawfully allowed to carry weapons. They're trained on them. And it's up to them to practice with their weapons and become proficient with it. If they pull that weapon to defend themselves or another person's life, then they're taking it upon themselves for the act that they're doing, just like a police officer does. You pull a weapon, you aim at somebody and pull the trigger. Once you pull that trigger, you can't pull that bullet back. It's downrange. Same way with a person with a weapon that's trying to do good.
The student, the doors are locked, but the student goes out there with the handgun. How are they going to help the police who are trying to help take down the shooter if they're going to, police aren't going to be able to tell that's a shooter or if that's someone who's trying to help?
Was that CHL directly confronted with lethal threat? If not, they should have stayed in the room, not knowing where that threat was.
That's with this law, it's not going to help the students on campus. It may even harm students on campus if there were a shooter. Or you want to go gun trigger happy and try to help out, and it might end up killing some students in the long run.
I think he's saying, how do the police determine who is the active shooter and who is the person trying to help? And I think that's an interesting point to bring
As a
up.
police officer responding to that, all I see is somebody that's not in a uniform with a gun.
Oh. So that.
Are you got it?
Yeah. Bad guy's typically going to point a gun at you, and if you're a responding officer and you come up on a situation, you tell somebody to put their gun down and he refuses, you got a problem. So it's obvious that you have an issue if you have a person who's there shooting at other people and an officer responds and he says, put the gun down. Well, you should put the gun down. It's not any kind of curious thing. And also, every year we see more and more of these mass murder, kill-a-thons that people have. Let's not forget, these guys are typically dead enders. Just like you were saying, they usually reserve the last few bullets for themselves. And not to just blame guns as being the only means of doing these things, but just I think last week we had an airplane go down in Europe where the guy just blocked himself out in the cockpit and basically committed mass murder. So these kind of problems can be done with anything. They could take a knife, they could take a bomb, they could take a gun, they could take a car, they could take a train, or anything they want. The thing is that your life is important and your life is valuable, and you have a right to protect your life. And you have opportunities in this state to go about and get a license to do that. Unfortunately, I like constitutional carry. I'd rather have open carry everywhere, but I know that there's restrictions in this state, and this is the best we can get at this point.
You pretty much said what I was going to say, but since I've been here, which has only been a few minutes, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of different things, and emotion gets involved in this. And the problem with that is very simple. This is a mathematical equation. Bad guy hurting people, plus, now you have a variable. Nobody is able to fight back, or somebody is able to fight back. And you plug which variable you want in there. To answer this gentleman's question, the truth of the matter is, once in a blue moon, it may be worse. You may have 3 or 4 people that try to take a shot at the bad guy and wind up doing more damage. That is a distinct possibility. What's the alternative? Nobody is able to do a thing about it, and so the guy walks through a classroom or an auditorium or the cafeteria or wherever and just literally, one at a time, shoots people. We've seen that happen over and over, starting way back with Luby's, all the way to San Diego. And here's the bottom line. Life is a dangerous thing. If you're alive, guess what? You could be killed at any minute. It happens all the time. Today, somebody's going to die in a car crash somewhere around Houston. It happens all the time. You have to be prepared to deal with things that come up. Now, how do you deal with things? You have the proper equipment. It's very simple. If you want to go skydiving, you have a parachute. If you want to fry an egg, you have a frying pan. If you want to defend your life, you have to have the proper equipment. It is literally as simple as that. It's a simple mathematical equation. Somebody just started shooting in a classroom. What would you like? No one able to fight back? No one with the power to stop that bad guy? Or someone with the power to stop that bad guy? That's it. Plug in the variable and see what answer you get.
I'm just curious because I'm ignorant to like the process of getting a CHL or is putting your gun down when a police officer or a uniformed officer tells you to, is that like a part of the training in regards to it?
Yeah.
You obey lawful orders.
It's also a natural part of being a good person.
Yeah.
From this side of it, you better.
Hello. As a psych major, my main wording here is that you said we can't have a database of CHL carriers. And so if there is a CHL carrier who encounters stressors, as we all do as college students, and begins to have to see a therapist on campus and has a breakdown, and then proceeds to be violent, and because of whatever circumstances they encounter, the training does not keep them from being a threat to the school. Is there a procedure in place for if that happens, to where we'll know from our therapy sessions here on campus to them having a CHL, to where we can have that alert for them for, I would say, for the, for administration, so that that can be stopped before it happens.
Well, you have to, when you renew, you can't have these psychological.
Well, I know that, but people go through stressors within college. A lot of the stressors that we have, like, say you find out you flunked a class, you find out your wife left you, the next day you find out you lost your job, and you find out that you're just in a horrible situation. Those stressors within themselves cause people to think irrationally. This has been proven. What I'm saying is, if I'm going to back this, I need to know that there is a procedure in place for if that happens, we can say, okay, this person has CHL, this person is showing that they have some type of psychological trauma, and that they might be a threat to whomever. We might need to do something or alert somebody so that this does not occur. And that's my question.
I can answer part of that. The part about having a list of CHLs, no, I can't. As far as having procedures with the health provider, UT provides our student health services. We have procedures with the UT health people for problems in the clinics. And that's as far as I'll go with that.
I have a pull of 911 audio. I've done freedom of information requests on 911 audio, and the 911 operators are very professional. When you deal with a 911 operator, they ask you a myriad of questions. One of those is, are the people involved in whatever situation exhibiting some kind of mental stress or breakdown? And especially when a gun is involved, they will ask that question. If that's the case, then that will give the responding officers a reason to go and investigate that. And it is state law, if I'm not mistaken, that if you're dealing with someone who's emotionally unstable and exhibiting signs of stress, that they can be taken into custody and relieved of their weapon if they have one on them, and returned to them, I think, like after 30 days, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Yeah, so if you have a situation with a person that is armed, and you know they are armed, and they have obviously been inebriated or otherwise having an emotional breakdown, please do the responsible thing, call the police, let them know that this person is highly unstable at this moment and they need help. And the police will probably do something about that. Hope that makes you feel better about that.
Actually, to answer the lady's questions, the federal government has put in a lot of things for the HIPAA laws to actually combat the stigma of mental health people. It actually has to be a recordable event for you to lose your CHL. And as somebody with a family member of mine that actually has mental health problems, and right now she can go out and buy a gun, she can carry a CHL, she can do anything everybody else wants. But the recordable instance, it has to be something big, and it has to be something where the state can keep you for 3 days for evaluation. The problem with that is the federal government has said during those 3 days, if you choose to walk out, at the end of the 3 days, they can't proclaim you as criminally insane, if you will, and keep you locked up. But to go even one step further, there is no such thing as a perfect utopia. There is always going to be a situation where it ends in the negative. That despite your outcome, despite anybody's outcome, there will always be a fail in the society. But the federal government's actually going against the state governments now as far as CHLs, that you can't just tell somebody you're crazy. And actually, if you share any of that information with an outside source that the crazy person hasn't said you could, you actually go to jail. So if somebody here at UT told somebody that this student is in fact crazy, they can go to jail. And the crazy person's still walking out there.
Do you mind if I stop here for
Yeah,
a
go
minute?
for it.
What are the requirements for like a gun being concealed? So if you can see like a bulge on someone's side or whatever through their shirt, is that still considered concealed? Or does it have to actually, you have to actually see like the gun physically on it?
I believe you need to see the gun physically. Bulge doesn't mean that it's a real weapon.
That's called printing. If you can see it through the shirt, yeah, it's perfectly real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to answer your question, if there was like a database or reports, well, I was able to go to the DPS website and pull out the conviction rates compared to the total convictions and then the convictions of CHL holders. I was able to print off of my own computer and print off my own printer. And as a student for Sam Houston, I mean, sure, there are times where I'm frustrated and I get mad, but I don't go around, you know, killing people and popping people's faces off. I mean, if you're a responsible gun owner, you obviously are going to tell yourself, yeah, you don't want to do that. That's kind of stupid. I mean, the whole idea that, you know, like all these people say that, oh, you know, it's a high stress environment or that, you know, it's offensive. It doesn't matter. It all depends on the individual. And just like, you know, you said, I mean, you're obviously going to have tiny negatives in a utopia. I mean, as a current CHL holder, I haven't gone around and killed massive amounts of people. It's like, you know, for people to say that, you know, if you allow guns on campus, it's, you know, it's going to lead to blood in the streets. Well, it turns out that out of 50,869 total convictions, there was only 158 of them were from CHL holders. So that's less than 1/3% of CHL holders are actually convicted of crimes.
So I just wanted to make sure I understand what you were saying, Heather. Let's just take me, for instance. I have a CHL, a bunch of crazy stuff happens to me, and I go see university counseling. And I say, hey man, I think I'm gonna kill myself. Like, I'm so stressed, I might kill somebody up, or who knows? Like, I just feel crazy. I think what you're asking for is for counseling to be able to look in a database and see that I'm a CHL holder and know that I may possibly have a firearm. and be
You may
able to
still
tag
have a
me.
firearm.
Well, yeah.
Let me address
I mean,
that.
it's almost assuredly that I do if I have a CHL, but.
Not
I think
necessarily.
that's what, well, that's not, you're right.
Because
Almost
at the
assuredly.
state capitol, if you have a CHL, you can walk through
Yes,
security.
you can, and that's
a
why
lot
I
of
have
people,
one. But I think that's what she's asking
it's like a
for,
driver's license.
to
Just
see
because you
what
own a
relevant.
driver's license doesn't mean you have a car.
Right, you're right. So I think that you're asking for a database to tag people who may have a higher level of threat because they may have a gun.
No. That's
Right.
just it. Let me.
I'm just trying to clarify her question.
Here's what it really comes down to. Let's say you have a CHL holder, and he legitimately has a nervous breakdown, and decides he's gonna go out and kill somebody. And the police go to his house, take his license, take all of his guns, round up everything. Let me ask you a question. Who in here knows where the bad side of town is? There's several of them around. Anybody know where to buy some weed? It's a college, you know, a lot of kids would know where to buy some weed at. Here's the point. It's not that hard to get your hands on a gun. Simply going to their house, taking away their license, taking away the guns that they currently have. If they want to go postal, simply taking that gun that they have at their house away and their license to carry it, it's not going to stop them. You go down and you find the nearest guy that looks like a outlaw biker or a thug or whatever, you spread the word, and somebody will sell you a stolen gun, and then you go postal. Here's the bottom line. If you want to ensure your own physical safety, be prepared to ensure your own physical safety. That's really the only thing that works. It's as simple as that. If a bad guy wants to get his hands, look at Adam Lanza. Adam Lanza couldn't buy a gun, he tried to. He went, found out he was going to have to go through a background check, decided against it, went and killed somebody and took hers. That's what happened. It's not that hard to get your hands on a gun. And so, I understand your concerns, and I'm not saying they're not valid concerns, I'm simply saying it's very easy for a bad guy to get around it. So it's kind of an academic exercise. It's not going to keep you safe. If you really want to be safe, go get a gun, and learn how to use it, and be prepared to protect yourself.
Staff?
I just like to comment that some of the 4 topics that are discussed when you're taking your CHL course are the use of force, nonviolent dispute resolution, handgun use, and safe and proper storage of your handgun and your ammunition. So in the event that we need to dispute a resolution, people who have their CHL are able to figure out the best plan of action so that they can protect themselves and others before actually having to use their weapon.
I don't know how close we are to wrapping up here, but there's certain things that I keep in my vehicle because I can't carry in work. My gun stays in my vehicle. But in my vehicle, I also have a fire extinguisher and I have a first aid kit. Odds are I'll never need them, but I have used my fire extinguisher and I have used my first aid kit because something happened that required it. It doesn't happen every day. I've had to draw my weapon in anger once. Fortunately, it wasn't at a human, it was at a pit bull. But they don't respond too well to reasoning. So there's more than one reason to carry a firearm. There's lots of bad things out there, but just like I have my firearm, I have my first aid kit, and I have my fire extinguisher, all just in case. It's the old Boy Scout, be prepared.
And take this last question, I don't know what time it is.
6:25.
I understand that the faculty senate did discuss this issue, so I wanted to know what, if they did take a vote on it, what the conclusion was and what some of the reasoning was behind whatever conclusion was based and how close it was, or whatever details you have on that.
Thank you. The faculty senate did pass a resolution, I believe. You really need to speak to Dr. Susan Henney, who's the president of the Faculty Senate. I don't want to speak for Susan. I do believe they passed a resolution not in support of the concealed carry bill. And I believe that's consistent with faculty senates all across the state. I don't know that there was, I think it's statewide. This gentleman may disagree with me.
I think Texas A&M disagrees with that.
Chancellor Sharp, I know, has come out and said he is, I think he kind of was, he's not against it. Yeah, he didn't say I'm for it, he said I'm not against it, so it was an interesting response. You know, I will speak as an administrator, and the chief has done most of the talking tonight, which was appropriate. Yeah, my personal view is that I think people who go to the trouble of getting a CHL are going to generally be very, very responsible gun owners. And the statistics seem to bear that out. Now, at the same time, I do have concerns, and this gentleman sort of addressed it when you talk about what can happen. I mean, if you have a situation where there's someone with bad intent with a gun who pulls that gun, and people respond, CHL holders respond, then you could have a situation where as police are responding, there are several people there holding guns, and you know, that could get messy, I suppose. So that's a concern that everybody has. I'm also sort of respectful of what Admiral McCraven said. Admiral McCraven is the chair of the UT system, and he is a very, very distinguished military man who said that he is not in favor. He thinks that the concealed carry law will make campuses less safe. All I'm saying is he's somebody whose opinion I would suggest should be at least heard and respected. So that's just my thought on it.
I have a question. Most of the crime that we have on campus are thefts. Me as a CHL holder, I don't like to carry my guns. I'm always afraid of it getting stolen. If we have a rash of gun thefts, don't know if that's possible since everybody should have it on them. What do we do in a situation like that when people are getting their firearms stolen or people are being targeted to get their firearms stolen and put in their backpack? I don't know anybody who puts their gun in their backpack, but if you do that, I mean, the backpack gets stolen, I mean, then what?
You've got a crime problem and you start doing crime analytics. How did it get stolen? What was going on at the time? Where was it? You start analyzing these things and see if there's a pattern. If you can identify that pattern, you then teach to that pattern. Don't do this. If it's not on you and somebody's stealing it, there's got to be a reason. Or they're either following you, they know you. There's something going on. There's a pattern there. We've got to analyze that, figure out what's going on, catch the thieves, and get people to quit leaving it not on their body.
Right. If that has worked, and if that line of thought will work, we incarcerate how many people in the state of Texas for theft? And we have,
these days.
But we have failed to teach those people that theft is bad. So at the same time, anytime you have active shooters, we all look at after the fact and say it's bad. But yet, if we can't solve something as simple as theft, with the great amount of resources the state of Texas has, do you think you can teach people not to be active shooters? No? So can we teach people not to be thieves?
We can teach people to protect the property more.
Right. Okay, so it's my responsibility to keep my backpack with expensive books in it than to have this man come over and steal it while I'm not looking. So the problem is then on me for not watching my material, not on the individual that stole it.
I'm not saying the problem's on you, but we can teach to maintain your stuff more. The person is going to go around.
So you can teach the victim how not to be a productive victim, but you can't teach the person committing the crimes not to commit the crimes?
It's called recidivism a lot. We haven't done a very good job with recidivism.
So police officers have not done a good job teaching thieves not to be thieves?
No, we just make arrests. We don't convict and we don't punish.
So you can't stop the theft, you just arrest the people that you catch for theft after the fact?
That's what we do when there's a theft.
So this whole argument about when the police respond to an active shooter, that CHLs might be on scene, that everybody with a gun is in fact a potential target to the police. The police are then in fact showing up after the fact something has already occurred.
When we show up on scene and somebody's got a gun, absolutely they're a target.
But what if that person is an undercover officer that has a gun?
Same thing.
Okay. So,
he's got a gun.
So police are trained.
We're going to approach that person and we're going to give commands. And if the commands
So
aren't
police
followed,
are trained so well that if there's a man with a gun, even if it happens to be an undercover police officer, police are trained to shoot that individual.
I didn't say that. I said we're going to respond. The persons with a weapon are going to be targets. We're going to give commands, and if those commands aren't followed, then you'll have an ultimate ending. If that's an undercover officer, they're going to be trained that when they're approached by uniforms to identify themselves with their weapon down.
Now, I mean, I kind of agree with you on this, but I mean, like, with the whole, like, with theft and, like, sexual assault and murder, well, 3 weeks ago, there was a sexual assault that occurred on my campus. There was. I'm not saying that it was her fault. She was not at fault. It was the perpetrator's fault that decided to commit the heinous act. But what I am saying is that you have to present yourself as a hard target. That means you be aware of your surroundings, especially if you have night classes. You want to be freaking sure that you're paying attention. Go to lighted areas. You know, be aware of your surroundings. Like look around, and that's the same thing with us CHO holders. I mean, we're constantly. Well, I'm not sure. I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, like I always pay attention to my surroundings because I mean.
Everyone should. That's one of the things that we try to teach in crime prevention. The more you're aware of your surroundings, the less of a chance of a victim that you're going to be.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that with the whole recidivism rate, if the penal system cannot teach them to not commit crime, then it should rely on us as citizens. We should be allowed to care, so that way it creates, because when an individual is committing a crime, they go through a cost-benefit analysis before they actually commit. If they go to an environment where carrying of guns is prohibited, their benefit goes all the way up and the risk goes all the way to the bottom. If they go to an environment where guns are allowed to be carried, they're going to think twice because now the balance is kind of going haywire. That means the risk is probably going all the way to the top, and the benefits are going to be low. So, and a lot of people have asked me, well, even if the person who was sexually assaulted didn't carry a gun, you know, she still might have been raped anyway. I was like, we don't know. But because she was in an environment where guns were prohibited, the criminal is always going to commit the act regardless. So if guns were allowed, would he have sexually assaulted her in the first place?
Oh, all right, go ahead.
As you reiterated, sir, that yes, there are statistics that you can find. I'll hold here in my hand from the Texas GPS, the Texas Crime Analysis. A murder occurs every 7 hours, a rape every hour, a robbery every 16 minutes, and aggravated assault every 8 minutes. There is a violent crime every 5 minutes in the state of Texas. This is from 2013. And people are not going to want to encourage this. I do not know why. That's all I have to say.
Is that in schools or is
State
that
of Texas.
everywhere?
State of Texas.
That's everywhere. So
State of
the
Texas.
possession of firearms in all these other places, that includes that as well, right?
As far as, say it again?
I'm just saying, well, your reasoning right now is about stopping people with the high risk and low risk carrying your guns, but you just read statistics that's based on places where people are allowed to carry their guns, right?
Well, the stats he's got don't break down that way. You don't know if the crime was committed in an apartment complex, on the school campus.
But if you look at,
You're using that as your point. Your point is if they're able to carry guns, then the risk will be higher and there'll be less crime. But that's based on people carrying guns as well. It's not broken down into places that people can't carry guns.
Yes, it is
so it's
broken
not a
down.
valid point.
Yes, it is broken down.
We're in a place right now where you can't carry a gun.
Actually, that's a very valid point, because
That is a valid point. Thank you.
that's
Where are we at right now?
in the,
It is broken down. I just didn't bring it out.
that is a good point. In the state of Texas, you cannot carry in a bar, a restaurant that makes 51% of its profit from the sale of alcohol, or the consumption, on-site consumption of alcohol. But one of the most likely places you're most likely to get shot is in a bar. The laws in of themselves have failed. And that leads to the question to the officer here. He's very fond of teaching some. How do you teach somebody that is about to get shot by an active shooter not to get shot?
Let me rephrase. Do we have an active shooter protocol for students or for our faculty? I know that you guys may have one, but what do we do as students when there is an active shooter on campus?
It's the same everywhere. The run, hide, fight scenario. You can run if you can, get away from it. Hide if you can. If you can't, and that threat is upon you, you gotta fight. You just can't be a sheep and go to slaughter. Run, hide, or fight. Go down and fight.
How do you expect them to fight? How do you expect people that don't have firearms to fight?
Yeah, how do we do that right now?
They're gonna have it after it passes.
Well, actually, to capitalize on that, that's what I was gonna remark. There was a study that was done on incarcerated males that actually committed crimes like assault and battery and theft and burglary and murder. And 89% of them said that they are actually more fearful of armed civilians than the police officers. Because like you said, your job is to show up and to get the person that's committing the crime, and you don't judge or punish. However, there are repercussions for people who are actively shooting and targeting a group of people amongst CHL licensees. So, for instance, this morning, I'm actually in the Student Government Association. We had somebody come into our office this morning that actually Heather was there, and he seemed to have been, I don't know if he was on something or something, and it looked like he had a weapon on him. So as soon as I got to the office, I don't know how long he had been there, I called UHD police and let them know, but had he assaulted Heather or myself or anybody else in the office, how would we have defended ourselves? With the barbecue tools that we have like in the storage, or like, you know, we wouldn't have been able to defend ourselves. So that's also an issue that I think that we need to address. If there are people that have weapons, and anybody who has a CHL, whether it's open carry or not, you don't want to make yourself a target, so you conceal your weapon anyway.
If you don't have a firearm on you, you fight with anything you can get.
If that's effective, why do you carry a firearm?
Because I'm a police officer.
Thank you, Chief. I would like to ask the faculty member how we are supposed to defend ourselves without firearms.
Again, any weapon that you can find.
Thank you.
All kind of things in a classroom,
Right.
correct?
Thank you, Chief, but I would like to ask the staff, because they passed a resolution saying that they do not want, or you guys agree that y'all don't want students armed on campus. So I would like to ask you, how are we supposed to defend ourselves on campus?
He's not faculty, he's administration.
Administration, well, administration. I just need to ask, because you were referring to, you know, like what y'all had decided.
Well, we hadn't decided anything, actually.
Or what y'all had.
No, I was just telling you that, you know, my point I made about Chancellor McCraven was simply that he was somebody who's well respected, who took the position that concealed carry, students carrying guns on campus, made the campus less safe, not more safe. That's simply what I said.
Okay.
Faculty Senate resolution?
So, yeah.
Clarify that.
He's not a part of the faculty, he's actually an administrator, so there's a separate thing for him, but he's referring to a faculty resolution, he is not a part of the faculty, so he may not even know the basis behind that resolution.
And what did this faculty resolution say?
I do not have a copy of the faculty resolution here with me. Basically, I mean, it was essentially not supportive of the bill. So what language they use to express that, I don't know.
Is there any training out there that teaches you how to fight without using the firearm? Like if someone were to come at you, is there any training out there that teaches you how to fight? If you have to fight without a firearm?
Well, let me speak a little bit about the active shooter training that we've worked on here on campus. You know, the focus has been up to now on faculty and staff because students, there's a lot of churn with students. Students come and go, so the focus has been getting faculty and staff trained. Chief mentioned the Run, Hide, Fight video. We have distributed that to faculty and staff and encouraged them to watch it. The fight part of it, basically, you know, the video shows if there's a shooter, they have sort of a you know, a mock situation where if a classroom full of students can get out of the building, can safely get out of the building, it's very clear that they can and they should. If they can't, then they should lock themselves into the space that they're in. And there are things that you do. We have actually used technology and put individual lockdown technology in our classrooms, so our faculty can lock the classroom down. They can make that decision themselves. And what the training says is lock the classroom down, turn the lights off, silence cell phones. Police are going to be responding. Law enforcement is going to be responding very quickly to a situation like that. And then ultimately, if the gunman were to force, assuming it's a gunman, forces themselves into the room, then as the chief says, the training is to use everything at your disposal. It could be a desk, a chair, a back. If everyone, you've got 30 people in there, the idea would be to certainly someone with a gun would have a better chance of doing that than someone without a gun. I'll concede that. But again, I do think that the other side to this is, as I said a moment ago, the idea that you have someone with a gun who has bad intent and the police are responding and there are several people there with weapons drawn. That seems to me to be something that would be a concern. I know you guys disagree.
Well, I would ask the chief a question about that.
Yeah.
In your law enforcement career, and please understand, this is an honest question. In your law enforcement career, has it been your experience that the bad guys don't obey your command and the good guys typically do?
Both. I've had bad guys that had weapons. I've drawn down on them, gave multiple commands. They finally listened to me, put the weapon down. I've been very fortunate that I've never had to shoot a shot in anger. I've drawn down on a lot of people in a lot of hairy situations. So, both ways. Bad guys, good guys. Good guys will normally respond a little quicker.
And I guess that's, you know, one of the big questions has always been, police officer rolls up on a situation, there's two people there with guns. How do you know the good guy from the bad guy? Do you think it's reasonable to say that for the most part, when you say, everybody put their hands in the air, get on the ground or whatever, the law-abiding citizen is going to do it quick?
Don't make an assumption.
Well, I understand that. I come from a law enforcement family.
Get them in custody, then sort it out.
Right. I'm simply trying to, you know, at the end of the day, there are no absolutes with this. There is no rule that's going to apply 100% of the time. But I think that it's a fair thing to say that if a police officer walks up on two people who are armed and gives a command, the law-abiding citizen is going to definitely obey that command. That's what makes them a law-abiding citizen. The bad guy, on the other hand, is probably not going to want to go to jail and quite likely to maybe try and run, God forbid, take a shot at the officer, things like that. You won't have to worry about those sorts of things out of the law-abiding citizen because they haven't broken the law, they're defending themselves. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I can agree with that.
Okay.
So, bigger thing, leading back to your question statement at active shooter, there are things in this room or on campus that would be effective weapons towards an active shooter. Why aren't the assaults higher on campus if those items are always there? If those items could be used in an assault in a highly stressful situation, and like the young lady said, bad test scores and things like that, why aren't those same objects used in assaults on a daily basis?
Good question. I don't think people know.
What is the campus going to do about these items that are potentially dangerous on campus that have existed to this point?
What do you mean, what are we gonna do with them?
Well, the items that could be used in an active situation.
It's the old thing, anything can be a weapon, is your point.
But the point is, and what they're trying to say is the college students are under so much stress, either alcohol, drugs, bad grades, that they're potentially social maniacs. They're ready to go off and commit aggression. I don't know what the actual word is. But yet that does not happen on a regular basis, and yet there are objects that he has admitted that could be used as weapons that have always been here. But yet the assaults on campus is very low, I take it?
First of all, hold a gun and then hold, I mean, there's something different about holding a gun that kind of, I mean, the essence of it is for.
Yes, but I've held a gun and I haven't shot anybody, and I've picked up a speaker and I haven't beat anybody to death with it. So you're saying just because it's a Second Amendment rights, that automatically makes you guilty until proven innocent. And we, as of right now, are innocent until proven guilty.
Nobody said anything about guilty until proven innocent.
But you're saying if there are guns in play, that all of a sudden we become homicidal maniacs.
I didn't say that either.
Well, the other lady did, but like the speaker behind you, could that in fact be used as a blunt object? Think about it.
It's kind of unwieldy, but.
I don't understand the question.
You're saying in an active shooter situation, there are things in the environment that can be used as weapons. But yet then you're saying that there hasn't been any stress on campus because those same items have never been used in an assault on campus as of yet.
We all follow you.
I get you. I get you.
We're running out of time.
So is there,
And we got like two more, like,
This first bottle can be a one object, but you know. Put down that bottle, it could be a dangerous weapon.
I know the gentleman you mentioned from South Houston. All of you here, who are currently enrolled UST students?
Oh, U of H? Downtown?
UHD.
Right here.
Okay. So not all of you represent the student body here. I just want to make sure that we know exactly who's here.
I'm gonna let you have the last question, because we're running up on 7 o'clock.
Have you ever had to come into a situation where two parties were armed and drawn on each other, not officers, two complete strangers, you got the 911 call, have you had to come into a situation where two people were drawn?
I'm going back through a long history here, so no, I can't remember the situation where I've had two people. Knives, yes. Firearms, no.
Do you recall at any instances in recent history that that's happened, that y'all have gotten a call? Not necessarily you responded, but someone else that you know?
Not personally, no.
Everyone keeps saying that how are the officers going to know who's the bad guy and who's the good guy when they're responding to an active shooter situation. In an active shooter situation, I don't believe that an active shooter will let himself just be drawn on and stop. I believe it's a go or no-go situation. Someone's either going to die at that point, or nothing's going to happen. It wouldn't be a point. So I don't see why everyone keeps arguing the officers have to respond to two people drawn. And you've never had that situation, why would we see it now?
That's a good point, and I just wanted to comment on that, because I want to comment on this. First of all, if I pull my gun, I'm gonna shoot you, and I'm gonna kill you. And I think most, don't y'all agree? You pull your gun?
Yes.
Okay.
Pretty much.
But
If I have to draw.
Drawn on someone, and a police officer told me to put my gun down while somebody else is drawn on me, I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna disarm myself so I can be shot. So I'm gonna say, I'm a CHL holder, I cannot put my gun down until this person puts their gun down, and I'm gonna make sure that I don't get distracted by what the police officer is doing, so I don't get shot. That's just me. So I wouldn't say like, oh, just ask, you know, if a police officer asks you, the innocent person is going to disarm themselves, because I would do that. But that's just me. So I'm going to close all comments, and first I want to say thank you so much for coming and being very respectful. It was a productive conversation, and at midnight tonight the survey is going to close. Please make sure you tell your classmates to take the survey. My opinion, I don't think we're going to be able to make a sound decision either way because the margin is so close. But I think this is very important when this comes up again, if it comes up again in the next 2 years, if it doesn't pass. But if it does, I think we definitely need to have a conversation about how we deal with this new law on campus and what do we do going forward to make sure that the students are safe. So, thank you guys and have a great night.
Awesome.